Garden Basics with Farmer Fred is brought to you by Smart Pots, the original lightweight, long-lasting fabric plant container. It's made in the USA. Visit smartpots.com/Fred for more information and a special discount. That's smartpots.com/Fred. Welcome to the Garden Basics with Farmer Fred podcast. If you're just a beginning gardener or you want good gardening information, well, you've come to the right spot. Quite often when a new or a curious gardener wants to know, hey, what should I be planting in my garden? One of my more common responses is, it's hard to go wrong with All America Selections winners. All America Selections, they've been independently trialing and judging plants across North America since the 1930s. The judges are experts in the field of horticulture, including representatives from seed and plant developers, as well as growers. Also, arboretums, garden centers, public gardens, and land-grant universities are involved in the judging process. Among the AAS winners that I've tried that have found a nearly permanent place in my garden include the Arizona Apricot Gaillardia, red sales and salad bowl lettuce varieties, the Queen Sophia marigold, sugar snap peas, a lot of good sweet peppers such as the Cornito Giallo, which did well for me last year, the giant Marconi, and my all-time favorite sweet pepper, the Gypsy. Other AAS winners for me that I've grown fond of over the years include Bloomsdale spinach, Black Beauty zucchini, zinnias such as the Queen Lime orange and the Zowie yellow flame, which, by the way, makes for a great cut flower. Oh, of course, you want to know about tomatoes. Well, over the years, I've been wowed by the production and taste of AAS winners such as Big Beef, Celebrity, Chef's Choice Orange, and Juliet. So what are the 2024 winners in the opinions of the All America Selections judges? That's what we're going to delve into today on the Garden Basics podcast. We're podcasting from Barking Dog Studios here in the beautiful Abutilon jungle in suburban Purgatory. It's the Garden Basics with Farmer Fred podcast, brought to you today by Smart Pots and Dave Wilson Nursery. Let's go. Have you heard about the All America Selections winners? These are plants that have been trialed from coast to coast, in fact, throughout North America, to see how they do in your locale. And every year, there's always a great selection of new winners. We're talking with Diane Blazek. She is the Executive Director for All America Selections, as well as the Executive Director for the National Garden Bureau. All America Selections, Diane, it's been around a long time.
Yes, we were founded in 1932 by a gentleman with the Southern Seedsman Association. It was called, his name was Ray Hastings, and I kind of like to call him a doubting Thomas because when the organization was founded, it was between World War I and II. That's when a lot of new hybrids were being created and developed by the breeding companies. And he said, are these really as good as you're telling me they are? So he created a nonprofit organization called All America Selections, started trialing plants and working with different trial sites all over North America. I think they had 10 at that time, and now we have closer to 30 to 40 for each trial. But he created this system that said, okay, this is an anonymous trial. We have volunteer judges. These judges are going to put this new variety through its paces and see if it's really as good as the breeders are claiming. That's the story behind the All America Selections.
I have to tell you, my favorite new plant, and it's not that new, but it's fairly new, that I grew in 2023 was an All America Selections winner back in 2019. And a fellow master gardener came up to me and said, have you ever grown a potato from seed? I go, no. You're talking not a chunk like a seed potato. No, an actual seed. Really? Well, I got to try that. And it was called the Clancy potato. And wow, what a wonderful little red potato that is. It keeps on producing, and of course, I'm growing it again.
Excellent. I'm so glad to hear that because, a lot of people are like, no, you can't grow potatoes from seeds, like literal seeds, like you say. But yes, you can. And it's quite interesting. I think it makes the availability more because, okay, maybe somebody, or you can't ship the eyes to Canada or something, but yeah, just having something from seed kind of changes that potato growing for gardeners.
Yeah, and it solves a lot of problems too because planting from a chunk of a potato it has to be from a seed potato to ensure that it is disease-free. And by planting the Clancy directly from seed, you bypass that problem altogether.
Right. And they're easy. I mean, I was surprised. Somebody said, well, just do them like you do tomatoes and peppers. So the timing and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is true. This is real. They are really easy. And then they produce. So you have this tiny little seed that will produce, I'm not sure how many pounds you got from each plant, but it's quite prolific.
Indeed. I grow them actually in a container, in a fabric pot, a smart pot, about a 20-gallon size. And it's much easier when you're growing it in a container like that to harvest it, because sometimes you miss some potatoes when you're harvesting potatoes. But if you grow it in a fabric container like a smart pot, you can just turn the whole container upside down, dump it out, and go through it and get all the potatoes and then start all over again.
Right. Yeah. I love it. I'm so happy to hear that you like that Clancy, because it's doing really well. And a lot of people, maybe they were doubting Thomas's and they're like, oh my gosh, you're right. We can grow from the seed. And
like I said, it's a red potato, fairly small, but not that much smaller than what you'd find in a grocery store.
Well, actually, it's like the ones you would buy in the grocery store that are really expensive because they're small and they have this really good texture. Mm-hmm. And I found that there were a couple like really light pink and then a couple, more reddish. So they definitely have variety. So I just call them a gourmet mix.
All right. So that was my favorite new plant to grow in 2023. And of course, I am doing it again. So let's talk about some of the 2024 All-America selections. And you've got 3 edibles. You've got 2 broccoli varieties and a pepper.
Yes. Okay. So, I like to talk about growing things that are unique. And my favorite example is, okay, you could just grow a green bell pepper, but why bother? They're cheap enough in the store. Why not grow something unique? And I think all 3 of our winners this year they really fit that category. So one is a purple broccoli, and it is a typical head broccoli. It has the purple colorations on the stem, in the florets and everything. Won't keep that purple color if you boil it to death, but for the most part, if you're lightly sauteing or steaming it, it will retain the color. It's called Purple Magic. As with anything that's in this cruciferous, a typical broccoli, it would grow great maybe in your fall crops. So started in late summer and then, of course, depending on what your zone is. But it is unique. It is tasty. It's easy to grow. The heads on this broccoli are not going to fall apart. They're nice and tight, which is what all the breeders are wanting when they breed new things. So yeah, Purple Magic broccoli, quite fun.
I like in the description of the Purple Magic broccoli, it talks about how it can be eaten raw and you can find it sweeter and more tender than traditional green broccoli.
Right. I think that is very interesting. And I don't know if it's because it's purple. There's something about that purple coloration that'll make it sweeter, so if anybody doesn't like broccoli, try purple broccoli. Maybe that will change your mind.
What is unique about the Sky Tree broccoli, which is another 2024 AAS winner?
So this one, I'm sure you've seen in the grocery stores for years. They have the broccolini, which is a trade name, brand name, and it's a stem broccoli. So here what they're doing, instead of the shorter stems, in the head, they want to breed it for elongated stems. And the longer those stems are, the easier it is to harvest. And they want to make sure that those stems are not woody. So here we have this Sky Tree, which fits the bill with all of those. So it's easy to harvest. It has tender stems. These 2 are nice and sweet, very versatile. And once you cut that main stem, it will continue to put out some side shoots. So it's not just one and done, which most broccolis will put out side shoots. But this one really was bred for those nice, long stems that are easy to harvest and taste wonderful.
And these would be smaller heads, too. Actually, they're probably florets.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
One more edible that you have in the AAS winners for 2024 is a pepper that I don't think it starts as red, but it certainly is a vivid red at some point in its life.
Yes, exactly. It typical starts out green, turns to red. It is called a Lamayo type pepper, which I was not familiar with until we got this one in our trials. And that too is a variety name, but they have bred this one to be easier to grow. So we had a webinar about a year ago and we had a couple pepper breeders on there and they said, oh, did you know that hot peppers are so much easier to grow than sweet peppers? And I'm like, well, that explains my garden. I'm always successful with hot peppers, but it just seems harder with sweet peppers. So this is something that they've been working on. And this Lamayo type pepper is even larger than your typical bell pepper. Very thick-walled, dark red, like you said, a vivid red. And I guess the yield is not only in number of peppers, but in pepper square inch. It's a very, very large pepper. So there's a lot of breeding work done with kind of individual snack-sized peppers. This goes the opposite direction. So you're going to have a lot of pepper for your money when you're growing the Red Impact.
And that's the name of it, Red Impact pepper. And it's a sweet pepper, right?
Yes, it is a sweet pepper.
Okay, because I noticed that they compare it to the Big Bertha or the giant Marconi. And if you're a pepper grower of any age, you probably have tried giant Marconi or Big Bertha, and you know how big those can get. So that's rather nice.
Yeah. If you're a big fan, try this one. Yeah,
all right.
Those were our comparisons that we used.
The Red Impact pepper. Okay, that's gorgeous. For over a year now, I've been making some of the best compost I've ever had in a Smart Pot compost sack. The end result is a beautiful compost called leaf mold, and it's made from fallen oak leaves. And the best part of all, it's easy with the Smart Pot compost sack. All I'm doing is running over those fallen oak leaves with a mulching mower and then loading those shredded leaves into the 100-gallon Smart Pot compost sack. It's a fabric bag from the folks at Smart Pots that's lightweight yet extremely durable and lasts for years. It can hold 12 cubic feet of pure compost. This rugged fabric is entirely porous, containing many micropores that allows for air circulation and drainage. It has a fitted cover, too. It's a flexible plastic top that's designed to increase heat and help manage moisture in the mix, accelerating the compost process. And all you have to do in the meantime is wait. Load the Smart Pot compost sack in the fall, and the following year you've got some truly great compost to add to your garden bed. It's really gardener's gold. It's easy to start a compost pile with the Smart Pot compost sack. Open the sack, put it on level ground, and start adding your compostable materials like grass clippings, vegetable peelings, coffee grounds, and more, like oak leaves. And you can also add straw or shredded paper. Next, place the optional cover over the sack. That's all there is to it. And if you want even faster results, get a second Smart Pot compost sack and shovel the contents of one into the other, adding a bit of organic fertilizer that has nitrogen. The more often you do that, the quicker you're going to get a finished compost. Smart Pots, they're available at independent garden centers and select Ace and True Value hardware stores nationwide. You can find the location nearest you at their website, smartpots.com/Fred. And when you visit their website at smartpots.com/Fred, you can buy the Smart Pots online. Just visit smartpots.com/Fred, and don't forget that /Fred part, because on that page are details about how, for a limited time, you can get 10% off your Smart Pot order by using the coupon code FRED, F-R-E-D, at checkout. It's from the Smart Pot store. Visit smartpots.com/Fred for more information about the complete line of Smart Pot's lightweight, colorful, award-winning fabric containers and their latest, the compost sack. It's Smart Pots, the original award-winning fabric planter. Go to smartpots.com/Fred. Let's talk about some of the ornamentals that are AAS winners. What are some of your favorites there?
Oh, I can't have favorites, you know. It's like asking me about my favorite child. They okay, so we have quite a few ornamental winners this year. We have things that are grown from seed and things that are vegetatively propagated. So some you will only be able to find, at your local retailer. Others you'll find at your local retailer, and you'll be able to buy them from seed. So one of the things that we've been seeing a huge interest in is celosia. Actually, our 2023 year of crop is celosia. And, there's so many different types. There's the cristata, plumosa, and argentea. And people are just really interested in hearing the stories behind all of them and seeing the new varieties. So we have this one, and it's called Burning Embers, which thankfully the name really describes the plant. So if you think of, if you've got a campfire and some of the ash is left down below, it's got that orangish red, and this one is that reddish, it's a little bit more pinkish red. But I think the reason it looks so pinkish red is it has a bronze foliage that has pink veining on it. So the contrast between these plumes and the pink veins in the foliage is just beautiful. Very vibrant, well-branched. If you ever see well-branched, that means it has more branches. Each branch has a flower bloom on. So you're going to get a nice impact of color with Burning Embers celosia.
And this is from seed.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And for those who are unfamiliar with the flower of a celosia, they're upright and kind of feathery looking. And because of the color of the burning embers, it does resemble a flame. And it stays upright for quite a while, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. That's what all the judges were saying is the length of time that it was in bloom and the fact that it put up with all these different weather conditions, the heat and the humidity and the drought and everything. So it's a very sturdy plant that will just bloom for you all season long.
So are the AAS winners that we're talking about here, are they national winners or regional winners?
Pretty much all these are national. I'll mention I think we only have one regional in the ornamentals. When we were talking about the broccoli, one was a regional winner, more for the West. That was that Sky Tree. The other broccoli, the purple one, is a national winner. The pepper was a national winner.
Okay.
So the majority of ours for 2024 are national.
All right. Talk about your regional ornamental winner.
Okay. That one is called Petunia Sure Shot. It is white. This one is vegetatively propagated, so you will see that available. And it has a pretty good range here. Great Lakes, west, northwest. And think of a petunia when you look at it, and you're not going to see hardly any foliage. You are going to see just a ton of flowers. So they're a good size white flower. One of the big things that they're working with petunias these days is holding up like terrain, because the petunia will kind of sag its little head and get sad when it's hit by rain. But this one will bounce back a lot more quickly. So the flowers will rebloom, reopen up if China is getting hit by a lot of rain, but also will just thrive with the heat and the cold, drought, rain, whatever. Very vibrant white flowers.
In a mounding habit, I guess it gets less than a foot tall.
Right. Yeah. So it's not really bred to be one of those landscape type spreading petunias, but just a nice mounding petunia. And I'm going to generalize here. It's not true all the time, but a lot of the vegetatively propagated ornamentals, annuals, are really bred for containers. And if you look on our website, that's what you're going to see is you're definitely going to see the Sure Shot and how well it does in containers. Yeah,
exactly. That's a great idea for in the pictures that if they're in containers, it's probably a good plant for containers.
Yes, and actually on our website now, you can sort too by which AAS winners are best for containers. There's an option on the main page like container friendly or container suitable. Just click on that and you're going to see that there's a huge number of them that are very well suited for containers. In fact, some of these, we just started this 3 years ago where we do trial both in ground and in containers. We do have some things that win in ground and not in containers or vice versa. So we make note of that on our website.
All right. Some other All-America Selections winners for 2024. You have a geranium called Big Easy.
Yes, big easy, meaning it's easy to grow. And it's a whole series. This series from Demon Orange is the breeder. It is vegetatively propagated. But the really cool thing about this is the flower petal coloration. It's called pink batik. So if you think of batik fabric, what that looks like, so that will give you a visual. So it's almost like a mosaic of light pink and dark pink on each petal, which is just gorgeous. And the Big Easy series is known to be easy to grow, quite durable, a lot of blooms per plant. So you're going to get a big impact with this one.
Yeah, one judge I noticed says that the flower put out over 100 blooms.
That was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure who stood there and counted all 100, but if they made that claim, that must be one of the judges that does do that counting. We don't ask them to, but some judges are just so diligent. They're like, yeah, I think this is really important. And this one had over 100 blooms. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you.
One of my favorite plants to grow, a flowering plant, to grow in the shade in the summertime are impatiens. And impatiens are very popular here in the West for shady areas because it's usually a nice ground cover color that can fill in an area near a house, for example. And your impatiens winner for 2024 is called Solarscape.
Yeah, so it not only does well in the shade, but also does well in the sun. Because, a lot of times these impatiens will get a little droopy and sad in the sun. Mm-hmm. So this one will do well in both. And there's a couple key things here. So this is an impatient from seed. So for everybody who wants to start from seed, it's there. It also is resistant to impatiens downy mildew. Oh. I know the typical impatiens walleriana, we got this downy mildew. I don't know how many years ago it was, 5, 6, 7. It started in the East Coast. I'm not sure if it made it all the way to the West Coast, but it was definitely an issue. Impatiens sales across the country just tanked because no breeder and no grower wanted to put something out there that would probably succumb to this disease. So now the breeders are coming out with some of these series. I know Beacon is one of them. There's an XDR from Syngenta. It's another impatient that's downy mildew resistant. So now Solarscape is yet another series, and this one is called Pink Jewel. So it's got a really vibrant pink flowers. Obviously, they look like jewels. But it too is resistant to the downy mildew. So it's wonderful news for all of us who love impatiens, have a lot of shady areas where we wanted to put some color. We finally have our impatiens back.
So for those of us that have tried to grow impatiens in the sun, the usual variety we would choose would be the New Guinea impatiens. So I guess it could be compared to that.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it's kind of like another whole species here because it's an interspecific, and I'm not sure what they crossed it with. I don't know. Maybe they crossed it with the New Guinea line, but it doesn't matter to me because it's a wonderful plant.
It gets what, about a foot tall?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
All right. But it will do well in the shade, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank goodness.
It'll do both. I know. Because it's like, I want this beautiful color. And then they told me it didn't work in the shade. I was going to be really bummed. No, it will. It will do fine.
Well, speaking of plants that enjoy the sun, marigolds, they're a staple in most home gardens. And there is a AAS winner for 2024 that's a marigold.
Yes, it's called Siam Gold. So it tells you it's one of the gold. Basically marigolds come in yellow, orange, and gold. Typically. Yeah. So this is called Siam Gold. Full globe. I mean, they almost look like those old mums that we used to use for homecoming corsages. They're big, and that's what they remind me of. But the other thing that the breeders are working on is making sure that these flower heads, number one, are sturdy and that they're held above the foliage. It's not going to do me much good if I have a flower that's blooming and it's covered by the foliage. So you've got these beautiful golden yellow flowers held on top of the foliage on nice sturdy stems. I
would think then it would be good as a cut flower.
It would be. Yes, absolutely. They're 18 to 20 inches tall. So to me, that sounds like it's plenty tall to use in a cut flower.
All right. Again, it's a marigold called Siam Gold, Siam, Siam Gold. Want to start the backyard fruit and nut orchard of your dreams? But maybe you don't know where to begin. Or maybe you're currently growing fruit and nut trees and you've got a million questions, such as what are the tastiest fruits to grow? Where can I go to buy some of these delectable fruit and nut trees you've been reading about? And then how do you care for all of these trees, including planting, pruning, and harvesting? I've got one online stop in mind for you where all these questions you might have will get answered. It's DaveWilson.com. That's Dave Wilson Nursery, the nation's largest wholesaler of fruit and nut trees for the backyard garden. They have planting tips, taste test results, and links to nurseries in your area that carry Dave Wilson fruit trees. Click on the Home Garden tab at DaveWilson.com for all of these links, including a link to their years of informative videos about growing fruit and nut trees that they've posted on the Dave Wilson Nursery YouTube channel. Start the backyard orchard of your dreams at DaveWilson.com. Now, there is a plant here. I do not recognize the name, but I think it's probably a cross between two common plants. It is spelled Petchoa, a petchoa. Would that be like a Petunia calibacroa cross or something?
You have it 100% exactly right. And I actually asked the breeder literally last week. I'm like, okay, now how exactly do I pronounce this? And it is Petchoa because it's pronounced like Calibrachoa because, yes, it is a cross between a petunia and a Calibrachoa. So it kind of has the best of both worlds. Calibrachoas typically do not have to be deadheaded. I know they're breeding the petunias now to not have to be deadheaded, but that's one of the things that's really good about this. It doesn't, petunias maybe have kind of a sticky feel if you're deadheading them. These do not have that sticky feel. They have a nice mounding habit. This particular one is another nice bright pink flower. It has a yellow throat on it. The flowers are not as big as petunia, but they're not as small as a Calibrachoa. So again, kind of the best of both worlds.
All right. I have to learn now how to pronounce it. Petchoa is the name of it.
Petchoa, yes.
It'd be for the full sun?
Yes.
The Petchoa, it's probably going to bloom from what? Spring to frost.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those annuals that'll just keep producing and a good size. It's mounded, but it will spread out a little bit. So at most 12 to 16 inches tall and then probably is going to get almost 2 feet wide. So you get a lot of bang for the buck with this one.
So let's talk a little bit about the AAS process, if you will. Diane Blazek, who's the executive director for All America Selections, and these plants are trialed throughout the country, and there are test gardens, and then there are AAS display gardens. I know the place I'm familiar with, the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center, has plenty of AAS display gardens, and there's some excellent plants in there that change all the time. So, and you have these display gardens throughout the country.
You're right. Yeah. So we have almost 200 display gardens, and they are, I'm not going to say they're in every single state because I think there's 1 or 2 states we're missing, but we're working on that. But yeah, we really want to have enough display gardens so that anyone in the public, if you're out and you're driving by this public garden or you're driving by a master gardener demonstration garden, you can stop there and you can see these AAS winners and you can see how they're actually doing in your neck of the woods. So that's why we want to have so many of them. And with our display gardens, so we always send, and I literally was just packing seed packets this morning. We send out these seeds to our gardens every year. So every year they get a new assortment. We also send them variety markers so that you will know exactly what that variety name is. And just recently, thank you to COVID, because everybody learned how to use QR codes during COVID, but all of our variety markers also have a QR code that will take you right to our website. And then there's more information about that specific variety.
Hey, that's great, especially if you try to go to allamericaselections.org and you forget the dash between all and America.
Yes, this is true. Unfortunately, we have a dash.
All right. So that's the AAS website, all AAS-americaselections.org. Although I think if you do just an internet search for AAS Winners, I think it would lead to your website.
It does lead to the website, and we own that URL also, aaswinners.com. So if you type in aaswinners.com, it directs you to all-americaselections.org, because that's just too long of a name.
By the way, and this is one thing that I like to tell new gardeners who are wondering what to plant, which varieties do I choose. I said, well, you ought to go to the complete AAS winners list. It's kind of long. You have to download an Excel file, but it's going to give you the class, the variety name, the year of introduction, the type of plant it is. That goes back to 1932. So if you want to have an AAS winter tomato garden, you could fill an acre or so with the tomato plants in the AAS winners complete list.
Yeah, you're right. Some of them are now considered heirlooms. I know that. Some of them are no longer available. And, and if people's like, oh, well, why can't I get that one anymore? It's like, well, it's probably been replaced by something that's much better. So you can struggle and try growing something from 1940, or you can take something from 2024 and know that you're going to be a lot more successful with a lot less work.
Well, if I know tomato growers, they want to try it all.
This is true, and I will not dissuade that, because I think that's a great little experiment to have in your garden, and then you can have your neighbors over and you can have a tomato tasting party.
It's the All-America Selections winners for 2024. We've been talking with Diane Blazek. Diane is the executive director for the All-America Selections Committee, as well as the National Garden Bureau. Diane, we've talked about a lot of plants. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I kind of like to talk about plants, so anytime.
If you'd like more All-America Selection Plant Winners to hear about, we've talked several times over the past years with Diane Blazek of All-America Selections. For example, you can find out about the 2023 AAS winners in episode 243 of the Garden Basics podcast, where we chat about a popular, colorful winning salvia variety, Blue Bayou. It's a salvia that isn't a thug and won't overtake and dwarf the rest of your garden. For the 2022 winners, you can check out episodes 168 and 169, including info about an AAS Gold Medal winner, the Bee's Knees Petunia. And back in 2021, we chatted with Diane and found out about the winners for that year, including a hot pepper variety that's perfect for containers called the Jalapeno pepper. It's a jalapeno variety. That was back in episode 66. You can find those episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts or at our homepage, gardenbasics.net. Plus, we'll have links to those episodes in today's show notes. And did you know that the Tuesday edition of Garden Basics is back? Yes, indeed. Every Tuesday, we'll be answering listeners' questions. Last Tuesday, in episode 302, we answered a question about good birthday gifts for gardeners. We talked with several master gardeners and got something like 11 ideas for garden tools and products that they found they just couldn't live without. It's on last Tuesday's podcast, number 302. It's the Garden Basics Podcast. It's twice a week now on Tuesdays and Fridays. Garden Basics with Farmer Fred comes out every Tuesday and Friday, and it's brought to you by Smart Pots and Dave Wilson Nursery. Garden Basics, it's available wherever podcasts are handed out. For more information about the podcast, visit our website, gardenbasics.net, and that's where you can find out about the free Garden Basics newsletter, Beyond the Basics. And thank you so much for listening.